am so excited to be here with you. My name is Sean Q. I am your AI specialist and coach, and I am really excited because today we have a very special guest. I met her maybe about a month or two ago, and I quickly realized that her software is game changing. Like, it is like literally blowing my mind every single time I hop on that platform, and it's pretty wild. So listen, if you are a content creator, if you're a podcast host, if you create audio pieces, if you create video pieces, a video blog, or video podcast, you need to know this platform. I want to introduce you to Deirdre, and she is the CEO of Capsho. Let me know in the chat if you've used Capsho before or if it's totally new to you. This is going to blow your mind. Let's go ahead and welcome up Deirdre. Oh my gosh, Deirdre, I'm so excited you're here. Okay, so give us like the 30-second rundown of what Capsho is and how it all started.
30 seconds. Oh, wow. Okay. So how fast do I need to talk to fit it all in? But Capsho is essentially the fastest way to market and grow a podcast or a video, YouTube, or like a live stream. Basically, what it does is you upload your video, audio content, and we create all of the written copy around it that is required to market it. Anyone who started a podcast or who started a YouTube, like, you just know that it is not as easy as publish and it will suddenly get found. You have to post about it on social media. You have to email your list about it. You have to, you start to dig into some of the discoverability tools like SEO, etc. And Capsho helps you with all of that. So in short, upload your audio or video file and it creates your title and description, your podcast website content, your social media captions by platform, your email, your blog post, your LinkedIn article, your YouTube description. It pulls out quotes for you. It is amazing. As you can probably tell about how excited we are about it.
And here's I think like what's really cool is how many times have we put something out like a podcast, and then we're like, okay, we're going to launch the podcast and it's going to get 1 million subscribers in 2 days and it's going to be amazing. Yeah. And then reality hits and we're like, there's a little bit more work involved. And typically what has happened, so I have 2 podcasts. I have this AI Talk and The Abundance Show, and it has traditionally, historically, taken loads of hours with a whole team member dedicated to making that podcast work and functional. And let me tell you something. You have taken 40 hours of my work week and reduced it to 2 hours. Like, it's wild what has happened. So literally, if you guys are watching and you are a podcast host, this is something you absolutely need to be familiar with, because here's the truth. AI is not going anywhere, and you guys have actually been in the AI space for quite a while, which is what I really love. It's not like, hey, I have this idea, you put it out, and it's like a bad product. This is something you've been working on for a while. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I first learned about AI probably over 6 years ago now. It was back when I was still in corporate. Actually, I was heading up at the innovation team for a bank in Sydney, in Australia, which is where I grew up. And as the name mentions, innovation, we were looking at tools like AI, or technologies, I should say, like AI and blockchain and things like that. And so that was when I really started nerding out on the possibilities. Now, this is, over 6 years ago. So it was still pretty new. I mean, not new, but new by way of trying to go mainstream or get commercial, And so that was when I first started learning about it. And then if we that's context, park that to the side. So then in terms of and it's so funny when you talk about your own podcasting journey, Sean, when you're like, yeah, you're going to launch a podcast and suddenly everyone's going to know about it. That was exactly how I felt when I launched my first podcast. I did it because I had a coaching business 3 years ago. It was a coaching business helping e-commerce business owners basically grow, leverage digital marketing to grow. And I launched my podcast and it did nothing. It was like crickets. It didn't grow. It was definitely not getting me, the leads, the sales that we all want from a podcast, especially when it's, meant to help you create authority and credibility in the space. And so I had to figure it out. And what I figured out, which was not a comfortable thing to realize, is that growing a podcast is very much like growing a business. And that is a tough pill to swallow. But I swallowed it, and I just fumbled my way through all of the things. I leveraged mentors and spoke to a ton of people who had been able to grow their podcast and their business and piece it all together. And what I realized is that I kind of put it into this, like what I call the traffic pyramid, into this framework. But really quickly, there's like the passive organic marketing content that you create, like your podcast. Then there's the active organic marketing that you do to actually have that content work for you. And then you leverage other people's audiences. And then typically, I don't do this with my podcast, but definitely if you have a business, then you would probably scale through paid ads once you have the other three tiers working. And when I looked at what I was doing with my podcast at the time, I was like, yep, I was publishing consistently. That was tick. I was guesting on other podcasts, so I was leveraging other people's audiences, so tick. But what I wasn't doing was I wasn't making my content work for me. I wasn't actually, really, I wasn't making it active. And so when I really delved into what that took, I started doing it. Oh boy, like Sean, you talk about 40 hours of your week. Like I was burning my team out, creating all the pieces of content for all of the platforms in all of the in the ways that we're meant to, like if we're going to create content like a blog post, let's do it intentionally for a search audience. If we're going to create content for a social media platform, let's do it intentionally for that particular audience and for that platform. And so we were, going all in on figuring this stuff out, burnt my team out. And that was when I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. There's got to be a better way to do this. And then, I've known about AI, and I'm like, there's got to be a way that we can leverage AI to actually help us do this. And that's essentially how Capsho was born.
I love it. And so, okay, I have a couple of questions because you mentioned this triangle. You said at the very top, at the pinnacle, is paid, and that's really if you're going all in and it's your business. Then you have OPAs, which is you're guesting on other people's podcasts. And let me know in the chat if you have ever experienced that, where you're like guesting on everybody's podcast and like, okay, what do I do next? And then you have your passive content, which is like the publishing. I'm publishing the podcast, and it's getting published over and over, but nobody's actually seeing it. And what you're talking about is this kind of repurposed active content, where you take your human piece of content and you use AI to repurpose it into different formats. And you said something really interesting. I want to get your take on it. Is you said for that platform, for that audience. I can't tell you how many times I have seen people, and listen, me too. I'm there with you. Where I post great content on Facebook, and then I just copy and paste it for LinkedIn. Or I just use one of the schedulers, and it's like, just let me click all these platforms, and it'll be great for those platforms. And then it's like, bombs the platform. I'm curious, why is that so key, and how does Capsho support with that?
Yes. Okay. So basically, in a variety of ways, but I'll kind of walk through it so it's a little bit systematic. So when you upload an episode, it actually stops partway through the processing. And it does this intentionally because we want your content to be very specific. And the reason why this is important is because when you think about SEO and how it works, again, it's still governed by machines. And even though we've seen how smart AI can be, honestly, from a search perspective, the machines are still actually kind of dumb, surprisingly. And they need to be told and be very focused on, oh, okay, this piece of content is speaking about this one particular thing. And these pieces of content that you put out there collectively means that you are an expert in this one specific thing. And we don't know that as creators, right? I had to learn this through talking to SEO experts and etc. And I'm like, wait, what? I can't just talk about all the things in my niche. And I'll give you an example. I actually have a Capshovian, that's what we call our community members. And he is a dad, he's a faith-based dad. And so he's target audience are also faith-based dads, which makes total sense because we always want to talk to people that are like us. And he was like, okay, so when when we then delved into the topics that he was talking about faith. Obviously, he was talking about like finances, family, fitness, um, you know, and I think there was a fifth F, but like basically when you look at that, you kind of go, but like that's not just important to faith-based dads, that's literally important to almost like everyone in the world. And so what was really interesting was that even though he had niched his audience and was really super clued into what it was that was important to them, he hadn't really niched his content well enough to be found from a search perspective by the machines, because he was still trying to talk about everything, even though it was like it's kind of counterintuitive, because it's like he's kind of niche, but he's not. Uh, and so that's why I talk about this like two tiers of niche. And sorry, Sean, I know I'm totally going off into tangent.
Oh, please
but
go.
like,
I love it. Yeah, this is so juicy.
I'm just nerding out on this stuff. Okay, cool. So he like there's two types of niching, right? There's like niching your audience, super important, but a lot of times we stop there. As creators, we also have to consider niching our content to that audience. And because that's what helps us from an SEO perspective. So how this plays out in Capsho is it will actually stop partway through your process. It will force you to pick a topic. And we will recommend, so Capsho recommends 5 topics that it's picked up from what it's sort of read from your transcript. But if you don't like those, and I genuinely do this a lot myself, you can actually put your own topic in. And how I use that is I will actually use, the likes of like Surfer SEO or Moz to actually figure out what long tail keyword I actually want to rank for. And that's what I will put in. And then once you do that, then Capsho processes the rest of your content targeted to that topic, because we want to be hyper focused on getting you found, on getting you discovered. So that's like one of the things that Capsho does. And then when you go through and you look at, the assets, which include the title and description, the podcast website content, the social media captions, etc., what we've also baked in, because Capsho was developed by marketers, we're all marketers in the co-founding team. And, we've baked in some of our strategies around things that I call like content honey traps, which is in short a way to create curiosity. Because all of our written pieces of content, or really any piece of content really, has to be able to hook someone in and have them wanting more, have them wanting to either read the rest of the thing or take the next step, or actually act on what it is that you're putting out there. And so that's that content honey trap models. We have 8 mental models. Those are baked into Capsho as well. So it's just, those are just some of the like why it's so powerful from a marketing perspective.
So, okay, I want to break down what you said, and then are you open to doing a demo? I think that'd be so powerful for us to see it. Okay, cool. So most people stop at niching. Do you say niche or niche?
I say niche. I'm Aussie. So.
Okay, niche. We'll have the Aussie frame. So we niche our audience. I'll totally be American. We'll niche our content. And I think that's so important, because what's so key is making sure that our content matches our audience, and making sure that what we're repurposing is also matching our audience. Because I know there are some softwares out there that just give you a plethora of here's all the things, but it doesn't focus in on that specific topic. So if we talk about all these things in, let's say, one 60-minute podcast, we can still pool all the finance things, pool all the fitness things, pool all the family things, all the faith things, and whatever that fifth F was, which you'll have to, like, that's curiosity. I want to know what that fifth F is. And then you have these, what you call these content honey traps, which is really creating curiosity. Give me an example of like a honey trap.
Okay. All right. This is one of my favorites. I talk about this one all the time because it's just so powerful. But I actually stumbled upon this when I was at an event, and it had like a full agenda of, one of those events where you have to like kind of choose your own adventure. And so I was looking at the titles, and one of them stood out for me, and it was how I made $1 million with a $19 product and a toilet seat. And I was like, oh my gosh, like right? Like I need to know how this happened. And when I broke that down in terms of why it was so effective, I was like, you have this big result, $1 million, and then you have this almost like unbelievable facts that you're kind of juxtaposing against it. So a $19 product and a toilet seat. And so this is a mental model that I actually call the paradox. And so I actually tested it myself. So I had I just recorded an episode with a coach called Angela Taylor. and her whole story was how she does like multiple six figures a year working only 45 hours a month. And I was like, wait, how is that even possible? So, we had the interview, and that's what I made my headline. It was, that was like, it was all over social. And it was, I think on that episode, it was like double the number of listeners, I think, of
Wow.
what I'd been averaging before. Yeah. And at the time I was in the e-commerce space, obviously. And so I had people like Alison J. Prince, who's big in the e-commerce space as well, like DM me literally and was like, I can't wait to listen to this episode. How did you do it? And so that's just an example of how you can use something like the paradox or this juxtaposition to open this loop, and then because we're human, we just want to close it, right? We just need to know how that happened. And so that's an example of a content honey trap.
I love it. So content honey trap, which is creating curiosity and like almost pulling. It's like this magnetic, like I need to know what that is. And you call it the paradox, which is the formula is like big result plus unbelievable fact equals curiosity.
Yes.
I love it.
So that's just one. So we have 8 mental models, and that's just one of our mental models.
Okay, so this is where I'm gonna say show us the goodness. Like give us the demo of what show us everything.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. Can we bring
So we're gonna
can you
share your
guys
screen
see
and
that?
we see Capsho now, yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this is kind of the dashboard, and it's, you create new shows. So each folder is a show. I'm just going to take you through. We've been testing, but we basically, this is kind of what the processing bar looks like, and in the middle it'll go yellow. You click on that. That's when you choose a topic, and then it does the rest. And then when it's done, you land on a screen that kind of looks, and you'll love this GIF. Yeah, it's my favorite. What did I said? Oh, yeah, choose another template. Let's see. Okay, my internet is really slow. So let's just stay here. But you'll basically land on a template screen. And when you click into a template, it basically pre-populates for you. So title. And when you click on any of these blocks, by the way, it gives you options. So if you don't like this one, you can be like, I want this one instead, and just delete. And that's literally all you have to do. So this is like our content honey trap block. And so you can choose the one that you like. This is like our key takeaways. Again, you can choose the one. If you want to add something else, for example, like I want to add a quote here, then I can add that block, and then I'll be like, okay, here's my quote. So it's designed to be customizable. And let's say I want to save this template, then you can do that as well. So you can actually save the layout as a template. So it stays in your account, and as soon as you click on that template, it will pre-populate with that quote, for example, a quote that, where I had inserted that block. So that's like title and description. This is the podcast website content. Again, it gives you so much, it's so much content. This is a great thing. It's
That's
so
like
customizable.
wild
It gives
to
you
me
so
because
much.
I mean look at all that copy that would traditionally take us so long for a VA to listen
So long.
to the podcast and then have to write it themselves, and then like this is so juicy, and then to keep it consistent with all of your layouts. I mean, so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, so I'll whiz through the rest. So yeah, we have the, different social media platforms, and we have captions by promotional engagement. So those designed to engage, and educational, and all by different platforms. As you can see there, we have our email, promotional email. I haven't generated blog post, but I can show you that in another one. A LinkedIn article as well, a YouTube description, and it pulls out quotes. And our quotes, we have 5 different types. So motivational, story quotes, epiphany quotes, promotional quotes, and topic quotes. And yeah, you can mix and match. You can basically, it's like, again, also choose your own adventure. But our blog post, let me see if I can I think this one had a blog post that I generated. Yep. And so you can see again, and these are all blocks. So here I've only put in 1, 2, 3 things, 4. Okay, but I could keep going, and I could be like, I want the 5th thing in there. And like literally, there's so much content that you get out of here. It's crazy. But it's very much designed to help you get your show and you discovered.
Yeah, that is so wild. Okay, now let me know, is it just copy or are there graphics associated? Anything else outside of copy?
Right now, it's just copy. we'll tinker with some graphic stuff. And the next thing, just to give you a bit of an insight into what we're working on next, is going to be what we call moments. So this is where we'll actually identify, based on particular actions that you want your audience to take, really key moments that happened in your episode that you can then clip out. So then you can go use a Descript or whatever editing tool that you like to use and find exactly those clips, those moments in your episode, and just clip them and create a short form video from them.
That's
So
wild. And I
that's
think
the
what's
next.
so
Yeah.
so powerful about this is like being able to pull those quotes, that blog content, the headlines, the honey post, like this is just it's so powerful. And it what I've really been telling people is that AI doesn't replace you. What AI does is it makes you
Mm-hmm.
faster. It makes you more efficient. It
Yes.
gives you the power to do more human things because I'm no longer spending 4 hours a week, 40 hours a week, I'm spending 2, which means I have 38 extra hours to go do everything else I want to do, to check all the other check marks on my to-do list that I haven't gotten done. So this is really incredible. Who do you think are the best users for Capsho?
I think we definitely talk to entrepreneurs who podcast, because I guess same thing. Like, I'm one myself, and I think entrepreneurs as well. The great thing about them is that generally we understand what it takes to grow a business, and therefore what it takes to grow a podcast, and that content is so key to doing all of that. And that's why I love talking to entrepreneurs, honestly. So yeah, that's generally who we talk to. But we also serve people who have narrative style podcasts. We talk to it. Serve a lot of agencies, obviously, and podcast producers and managers and things like that. But yeah, I just love, like, entrepreneurs who podcast are just my people. Like,
Yeah, I love it. And I feel like so I've gone to a couple of podcast events, and I feel like every single time I go to a podcast event, your name and Capsho show up all of the time amongst all of the people. And so I absolutely love it. And what's really exciting is this is giving us permission to really lean in. If we have wanted to start a podcast, but we haven't because of how much work goes into it, if we wanted to start
mhm.
really scaling or growing our podcast, but we haven't because of it already takes enough time to do the podcast and then to add so much more to do the active content. I mean, this really makes it so simple and so easy. Uh, Let me ask, what do you think are some of the like? Let's just kind of imagine a little bit. What do you think the future of
Mm.
AI? You being such a like you're in it, you're creating it, and leveraging it. What do you think
Yeah.
the future of AI is in, let's say, the next 2 years?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I don't, yeah, I have a little bit of a dystopian view on AI. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that here. But I was actually having this really fascinating conversation with someone also in the podcasting space, but we were just nerding out on seeing some of the trends that are happening. And even when you look at like an Elon Musk, for example, right? Like he's just bought literally one of the biggest social media platforms that's probably the closest but closest to human discourse that there is, like where, like, in terms of what we're thinking and how we interact and things like that. And when you think about the moves that he's making, now I'm totally making, like, I'm just hypothesizing here, right? So it's not like I'm an expert at what Elon Musk is doing, but
Yeah.
he's kind of like, he's just bought Twitter. He is, wanting to own space. He with Tesla, etc. He's wanting to own the roads. He's been experimenting with Neuralinks and stuff, that where it's all about, like, when you kind of go, when you sort of look at his moves and what he's doing, it's really fascinating to go, this one person can essentially start to create these, like, machines, essentially, because he has so much data on everything, literally everything in the world and in the galaxy. Like, he's collecting data, and it's kind of scary, because when it's in one person's hands, no matter how good their intentions are when they start, uh, the great thing about people like someone like Elon is that they are so principled, and they just want to get it done, and with good intentions. But I think that also the flip side, the negative, is that you can also be so staunchly in that principle that you feel like you know the best for everyone else. So that's
Mm.
why I kind of have a bit of a dystopian view on where AI could be heading. And honestly, that's why, even for us, we actually created Capsho 2.0. And like in our little bubble, it was like, okay, what can we do to kind of help stave off as much of, quote unquote, robots taking over the world? I know that we don't believe that, but, in terms of allowing humans to be more human. And I think you spoke about this actually, Sean. I was listening to a talk you did on a micro audio summit. How can we as Capsho, as someone who is actually creating software in the AI space, how can we help our creators be more human? And what that means is it is so easy to look at AI and be like, either on one hand, I'm scared of it, or on the other hand, great, it's going to be able to do everything for me. I can sit back and do nothing. It's so easy to do that. And both of those are wrong, are like not the good places to come from, right? We need to be using AI. It's there, and basically, and I hear this quote all the time so much that it's become cliched now, but it's, you won't get replaced by AI, you'll get replaced by humans using AI. But it's kind of true. And so when we looked at that, we were like, okay, we need to be able to insert the human more. So that's why we very intentionally have things like templates, and why we stop in the middle of processing and force you to choose a topic, and why you have to actually, we say Capsho can only get you 80 to 90% of the way there. You have to do the rest. You have to do the other 10 to 20%. And the funny thing is, when we launched Capsho 2.0, so this was only 8 weeks ago, we did that. We made that shift where into what you see now, where you have to actually choose, and you lay out your templates, and then all of those things that only like the humans should be doing. We actually had a lot of 1.0 of our users rage a little bit at us, because they're like, you're making me click more buttons. Like, you're making me have to read. I was actually shocked. People would go in and just download without even like all the content, without even reading it. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, that is just not. And so I so stand behind what we've done with 2.0, because we fundamentally believe that the creator, has to be part of that process, and they have to own their voice and their content.
Yeah. So something that I've been really emphasizing in our community is that humans are still a necessary ingredient. That you are still necessary in order for artificial intelligence to not be artificial, but to be authentic and to be real. If it is speeding you up, awesome. But if it's replacing you completely, replacing your voice, replacing your ability to make decisions, that's where we get into a little bit of kind of murky water of, is AI doing good to humanity? You brought up Elon Musk and this centralization of power that he has, and there's been a really big movement in Web3, like with blockchain and some other things that in regards to decentralization and decentralizing so that people have more access to themselves. And I've always been very cautious about decentralization, mostly because I think when we get to a place where anybody has power, then the systems that have protected us break down, and the systems, on the government level, on the societal level, can no longer serve us. And so I really appreciate hearing that you were designing in such a way that pulls the human back in, and that the UX, the interface it almost requires human interaction. Do you feel so? Like, there's been some. I was watching this training, this like 2-hour video from the Center for Humane Technology Institute or something like that, and they revealed an AI that is the data set is being connected with fMRIs and our blood patterns in our brain, and it's being able to recognize what we see and what we think based off of the data that's already there. And that's a little freaky.
Yeah.
So I don't think your cautiousness is like to be overlooked.
No,
I think
it's
there's
gonna
some like,
happen.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. And like, this is the thing that we, as humans, I could get into so like philosophical conversations all day long, but
Do
like
it.
we we totally do this to ourselves where we are in this race for, we call it like time freedom and so, which I'm totally not, like, I totally believe in. But then what happens is we go so far that we do give up our data and like all of these things. And that's really scary because when you start to link, like that is literally Terminator, right? Like that is literally what's going to happen. And, we talk about decentralized. I don't have the answer, by the way. I'm just, I just, it's just, they're like thought bubbles in my head that go round and round because on the one hand, I totally agree with you that, decentralization is not the answer. I also don't think that it's just leaving it to, to potentially very powerful people because we all know whose interests at the end of the day they have. And so it's, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, we'll do as much as we can. But at the end of the day, it's like, I kind of feel like I'm going to be a passenger in it. Like it's a bit of a shame. I feel
Yeah.
like all of these things are going to happen, and it's like, well, we're just going to have to sit back and see what unfolds. Um, and it's so funny, like, because oh gosh, okay. So I was talking to the founder of Copy AI, and he's an interesting person.
What's his name?
Like Paul. I forgot his
Paul.
last
Paul.
name. Paul. Yeah.
Okay, Paul. Yeah.
And it was super interesting because so he's so excited about, he's almost the other extreme where he's like, he totally sees the machines taking over the world, but he's actually excited about it. He's like, oh my god, like he's like, why would people be like want to make mistakes over and over again? That's just so stupid. Like a machine can just tell you what to do and just like shortcut it. And I was like, but that's like fundamental to being human. I don't know. Anyway, so we were just having this like very weird debate about like humanity and all of the things. And the fascinating thing that I was getting out of that was that, so he was like, yeah, because, like global warming doesn't have to exist because we can just use technology to recreate, etc., and all these things. And I was like, but do you like, and again, this goes back to what we do to ourselves as humans. It's like we try to solve something. Again, we start with good intentions, but with every single cause there's an effect, right? Like, so we try to fix this thing, we're going to 100% stuff something else up. Like that's just going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And then we create the next problem, and then the next problem, and the next problem, and that's just what's going to happen. And that's just, you look at the Industrial Revolution, like all of those things. It's because of those things that now we didn't even know, right? We couldn't have known.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the somewhat exciting thing, but also scary thing about any kind of technology that's just like racing and really changing the world, is because we know that there's going to be an effect at the end of this. What that is, we don't know yet. But once we hit it, then we're going to be like, oh, okay, well, if only we had known that at the time.
Yeah, I was having a conversation. I don't remember with who. And what I was sharing, what they were sharing was new technology always leads to new liabilities that we're unfamiliar with until they become like dangerous to us. For example,
Yes.
with the Industrial Revolution, it led to much more factories and a lot more
Yeah.
output, and people were faster. And we have robotics, and we also have global warming and
Yeah.
climate change, and we have a crisis of plastic in the ocean, and like there's
Yeah.
all of these other things that we could not have guessed in,
No.
until we're here. And now we're here. Now we have to create new technology for these problems, which will create more problems. And it's so interesting. I'm curious to hear from you because you're so in this space. Do you have any principles or standards of AI use that are ethical, safe, that kind of keep you kind of in the straight and narrow, if you will?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, if we look at like what we very intentionally did with Capsho, I'm so passionate about this because we anchor all of the content that Capsho creates on your content, right? As the creator, it's a podcast, it's a video piece, and we just create. So it's kind of like a more narrow AI, if that makes sense, versus sort of more general AIs where and I kind of call it like black hat businessing. We read all the time where people are like writing and selling kids books and things like that, and monetizing work that, I mean, yeah, they might have created a few prompts, so debate about whether that's work or not. But like at the end of the day, especially when you look at it from a graphic perspective, that is leveraging other people's work, and not your own. And so for us, it was like we very much want to stay narrow because we want to only be creating content that is off the back of something that a human actually created. They actually spoke about their story and their experience and their expertise, and they're sharing value that they, that they experienced, that they created themselves. Versus what we're going to see more and more now is, yeah, you can use, ChatGPT to script a podcast. You can then use 11 Labs to, talk about, like, to actually, voice it,
Record it.
um, record it. Yeah. And not like, I don't know if I quite agree with that. I know, Sean, that you have, maybe some other views on this, because at the end of the day, we like the connection that gets created, and the reason why we create content is to connect. And the only way that we can connect, like with our own voices, or the way that we pause, or I have a tangential thought, and I'm like, and I stop mid sentence because I need to go down that path. And that's the stuff that actually, at the day, some people might find it annoying, 100%, but that's actually what creates a connection. The way that we tell our stories, and the actual stories that we share, like that's the stuff that creates connection. And so for me, I'm staunchly a believer of all of the root content that you're creating, all of the stuff that you're sharing has to still come from you. Yeah, you can use AI just like we do to actually help to proliferate that, but it has to come from you. Like, don't rely on a chat GPT to actually script something for you and hope that it makes you sound smart. I love using chat GPT for like topic starters, or like topic ideas and things like that. I love using chat GPT for that. But I wouldn't use it to like script a podcast episode for me, for example.
So I will reveal I have actually shifted my point of view on this. And what we were originally going to do was create content. We were going to script it on ChatGPT, do exactly what you said, 11 Labs it out, and then it's voice generated and sounds like me. And it felt so distant after testing and playing with it. And like, this sounds like me, but it doesn't feel like me. And there's like a level of authenticity, and maybe not even authenticity, but a level of intimacy that only human to human interaction can create. And I want to retain that as much as possible. And so a lot of what we're teaching right now is always start with a human source and then use AI to support it. Right? The human should start it, and then AI should support it in repurposing and creating that active content, etc. So I love that you're leaning into that, especially with Capsho and having such a narrow focus on what you're doing. There's another AI platform. I won't mention the name here, but it essentially can create a ton of video content, reels for you, essentially, like short form reels from a long form piece of content. And what the owners or the creators noticed was people weren't using their own content to do it. They were going to YouTube, finding as much content like motivational content or someone speaking or someone else's content, talk shows, etc., and creating clips and using those clips for their own platforms. And what they discovered was it was robbing the creators of the credibility, of the traffic, and because the human was creating it, but then another human was kind of robbing that content to multi-purpose it. Is there any, and I don't know how to resolve that. Is there any way in your mind to like identify I'm actually the creator of this, beyond like a I am over 18 years old type of thing that nobody is honest about. Is there anything in your mind that we can do to prevent someone from repurposing our human content for their own platforms?
Yeah, it's a shame. There's always going to be bad actors, unfortunately. Like there always will be. So I think it's just useful to have platforms like yours, Sean, that you're creating, and the education that you're providing around, hey, this is how we should be using AI. So I love speaking to people like you. And even when it's so heartwarming when you're like, oh, I've shifted my view on this, because that's great. Like that's what makes us human, right? Like where we can actually admit that, oh, I had one view, but actually, you know what, I tried it and I have a completely different view now. That's the stuff that connects us. And so I think the more that we can just talk about this right now, like the better. I mean, at some point I'm sure that they'll bring in regulations and things like that, but it's just going to be increasingly hard. And look, as humans, as smart humans, we can probably pick up what is AI sometimes. Now, AI, it is getting a lot smarter, so it's getting harder and harder to do that. Um, but generally, we're pretty good at doing that. But there is so much risk of, gosh, misinformation and all of these things that, it does sometimes keep me up at night. But again,
Yeah.
having you share your experiences and really just help to educate, that's the stuff that we can do at the grassroots level.
I think I think that's so good. I think about 200 years ago in the 1800s, they would have never imagined the modern society. I think 200 years from
No
now,
way.
we won't be alive. Maybe, unless AI finds a way to keep us alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is wild to think about, because there's an AI that's being worked on right now on the cellular level. It's so tiny, that's being inputted into these like tiny robots that don't need electricity but are inserted into a body and can essentially de-age cells. So there are some wild things that are happening like all over. So who knows? But I think 200 years from now, the world that exists, we can't even comprehend because of how rapidly things are shifting. We only have a couple more minutes, Deirdre. I am curious, last words of encouragement for those who really are interested in Capsho, and just AI in general, and anything that you want to share to close us out.
Oh gosh. Well, I would love for people to try it. I'm sure that Sean will have a link for you, but we actually have a free gift that we've created to help, if you have a podcast, especially help your podcast get discovered through two ways. One is in-app player SEO, and one is search SEO. So that's actually free. It's a free 28-minute audio course, so it's very short. You get an extended free trial of Capsho so that you can actually do the things along with the training. And I'm going to offer that for free so that people can get in and try Capsho. But
Oh my gosh, that's amazing!
Thank you, Sean. Yeah.
So cool.
I'm
Well, we'll
so
have
super
to.
pumped to be here.
I am so pumped that you were here, and we have to, in 2 months when AI is just totally different than it is today because of how fast it is, and Elon's taken over the world, and our robot overlords are around. We'll have to bring you back on to talk about it.
It'll be the robot version of me.
And the robot version of me, and we'll be just like hanging out, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly
Deirdre,
right.
thank you so much. This was an awesome interview. For those of you who are watching, now if you really want to lean in, go take her up on Search SEO, 28-minute free training that she's making available to you, and you also get an extended free trial, which is pretty awesome. So go get signed up, and if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it. If you know a podcaster, feel free to share this. This is one to listen to again and again, and I'm curious to know from you, what do you think? Do you think AI is going to take over the world? Do you think Elon Musk will own the galaxy and be, I guess, Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine? Do you think that we are on track for some really good things? Let us know in the chat and send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Sean Q, your AI specialist and coach, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.